What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Soulblaze, and as always, we're back again. Episode 6, Wine Swirlix. Baby, we got a hot take here for you today. Probably, this is going to be about, obviously on your screen you see Axew. We're going to be talking about Axew today. But before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this video that you're seeing. That let me know that you guys enjoy the content, and hopefully you enjoyed this Wine Swirlix series that you can kind of reference and go back to as you play your Little Cup Nat decks, draft leagues. And I hope this series has been helpful so far. I hope this is a good resource for you guys, and I really love making it. So here we go about Axew. Now this is a hot take. It's gonna get me in trouble, okay? Because arguably I think Axew is really underrated and it is really strong. I arguably, personally, in my personal humble opinion, I do believe Axew is the best dragon type in Little Cup. Yes, best dragon type in Little Cup, and I'm not kidding around, so let's get right into it. Okay, so about Axew, what makes it the best dragon in Little Cup? You might say, okay, well, you got Tyrant, right? We got the Tyrant lovers. Tyrant, the best dragon in LC. A lot of people are going to counter-argue the Axew point with Tyrant. It has dual stab coverage, it has more reliant abilities, it has better coverage in terms of using its ability, it's more consistent, and stuff like that. Well, Axew is not a rock dragon type, it is a pure dragon type. So there's a plus and minus in that. Obviously, as you can see on your screen, that attack stat is ridiculous. Okay, we covered the Darumaka's. That attack stat, redonkulous, baby. But the main problem with, or the main thing that makes Axew a problem is the speed. We're going to talk a lot about speed in this video. So, as you can see from the abilities, we have Mold Breaker, Rivalry, and a Nerve. They are not super fantastic abilities. Mold Breaker is my personal favorite ability. It does a lot of cool stuff in the game, like it ignores stuff and lets you hit stuff that you probably didn't expect. Like you can hit ground moves on levitators, you can break through sturdy without having to do multi-hit moves, for example, and stuff like that. So it's really cool the way that Mold Breaker works, but you could also use Rivalry and a Nerve in certain matchups to make sure that they can't run resist berries versus you in the Oran Berry meta, where berry juice in the leagues that are banned. That's also just gonna completely negate their ability to eat the Oran Berry and get recovery, take away recovery. And it also can just shut down any type of like Salak or anything of that sort. So that's kind of broken, or even Custap Berry, because that's coming back to Scarlet and Violet DLC, through the Scarlet and Violet DLC, I should say. So let's take a look at this move pool right here. It's got a very impressive, physically offensive catalog. We're talking priority +2 in first impression, which can make people run Protect versus it. Which, like for example, in the Grookey matchup, you want to abuse terrain turns, and if you have to run Protect, either you have to tank a stat or you have to take a super effective priority bug move that could be translated into bug and be stab, which is super scary for Grookey. And then you have to run Protect, right? Or it could also be for Carvana, and they have to use Protect, which means that they can't use the terrain turns of Grookey as well. It also works very well versus weather teams, for example, because that takes away a turn of weather if they run Protect to cover for first impression. So that's a really scary option. Obviously, stab outrage off of that attack stat is crazy. It's gonna do crazy amounts of damage. So outrage, if you don't mind locking yourself in, if the steals are gone, if the fairies are gone, you know, then obviously outrage can do massive amounts of massacre damage. But Dragonclaw is probably the most consistent, just because you can hit them and you don't have to lock yourself in. It's pretty good base power, and it's stab obviously, and you can Terra as well, so that's really good. And then obviously Axew is a monster because it's one of the dragons that has coverage for fairy types. It has Iron Head along with its Dragon Dance set and its speed. Every dragon in Little Cup is going to try for some kind of variant of Dragon Dance, with a very few exceptions. Like maybe, for example, Frigibax might not do that, but the main gist of dragons in LC is that they're going to try for a Dragon Dance sweep, and Axew is just amazing at that, because compared to stuff like Tyrant, for example, that has 15 speed, Axew goes first. It has 16 speed. So if it's Scarf Axew, it goes before a plus 115 dragon, which gives Axew a lot of the edge over other dragons in Little Cup, and is honestly why, in my personal opinion, this is the best dragon in LC. It's just kind of because of the things that it's able to do because of its speed being 1 point higher. And if you're coming from standard and you're saying, well, 1 point higher, that's not really anything, is it? Well, in Little Cup, speeds work different, right? So every speed is cataloged between 0 and 20. And if they have 15 speed, you get outsped by 16s, 17th, 18s, and 19s, 20s, and everything that's boosted. Well, Axew only has to deal with the latter part, that's 17, 18, 19, 20, and unboosted. So still has counters, but there's a lot less of them, and gives them the edge over other dragons because dragon is obviously super effective against itself. So it doesn't have to worry as much about other dragons as other dragons have to. They have to worry about a speed tie and stuff like that, which is super scary. Obviously, you have very matchup particular stuff like Brick Break for screens. You can use Trailblaze if you want to just hit for damage while you get a speed boost. You don't really feel like you need a Dragon Dance. Obviously, you have some other stuff as well. You have multi-hit moves in Dragon. You have Dual Chop. You have Scale Shot. You have Rock Tomb to slow things down. You have Aerial Ace for coverage. You have Bulldoze to slow things down. Aqua Tail for coverage. Reversal if you want to go that route. Obviously does have some special moves as well. Like you could run Draco Meteor with the Eject Pack, for example. You could do that, but look at the special attack versus the attack. Tell me you ain't running that catalog on the physical side. That's just crazy. It also has Facade for countering stuff like Burn. It has Superpower for fighting coverage. It has Shadow Claw Crunch, and also gets Night Slash for dark coverage, which is really good. So it just gets a lot of these physical tools, which is amazing. And obviously it also gets Stomping Tantrum, which bypasses the effects of Grassy Terrain, which nerfs Earthquake, Magnitude, and Bulldoze. So you can hit that. If it hits into immunities, it can also do double damage the next turn. There's a lot of possibilities there. And obviously, if you choose this to be your Terra Captain, you gain access to coverage and Terra Blast, and you can get that to any type if the league allows for that. And that's obviously super scary as well because that just covers even more for Axew. So in terms of the supportive moveset, we obviously have the staple for dragons, Dragon Dance, but we also have Home Claws if you want to run some more less accurate stuff. You could definitely do that. But then you got Sword Stance as well if you just want to go for pure power. You have Taunt, which coming off of a 16 speed is not half bad. It's not the fastest, but it is fast enough to reliably shut down tanks and maybe some of the other stuff that wants to threaten you by going for some other supportive moves that could shut you down. You have Toxic for stuff like Slowpoke, which you can kind of whittle down eventually if you're having a hard time breaking through it. Although I do think there are very few things that can tank a +1 Axew, to be honest. You have Roar, which goes behind sub because it's a sound move, so it can phase things out. You have Protect Yourself, so you can stall out stuff like weather and terrain and all that stuff. You can scout for scarves and stuff like that. You can set Sunny Day and Rain Dance yourself as manual weather to stop any other weather effects or just set out for your team behind you. And you can obviously run rocks with that if you want to extend those turns. You have Substitute that you could either pair with Dragon Dance, Home Claws, Sword Stance, and all that fun stuff, or even Focus Energy for just like immense sweeping capabilities. And obviously you have Endure for if you want to run like a Salic Berry and kind of tank a hit and enable stuff like Reversal. And you also got Endeavor, which I didn't put on here, but it's because I don't remember. I think it's a physical move, but it does get Endeavor as well. So you can do stuff at like low HP. You also get Rest, and you can do like a Resto Chesto Berry, of course. You can do like a Rest Sleep Talk, or if you're preparing against sleep, you can run like a Lumberry, or you could run like Chesto specifically, or you can run Last Move Sleep Talk. And then Attract is also a really fun thing you can do with this thing because it gets Rivalry, right? So you could put Rivalry, and for example, if we're talking about the fairies in Little Cup, some of them are like, for example, Flabebe is all female. It can only be female. So if you make your Axew female, it gets the boost from Rivalry against it for Ironhead, for example. And then for stuff that are male, you have Attract. So stuff that gets randomized gender into male, or stuff that can only be male, you can attract them. So you have either you get the power boost from Rivalry, or you can support move attract them. So that's kind of a fun little saucy set that you could bring for sure. bound to catch stuff off guard and immobilize stuff and give you advantage. That could definitely be a little cool Axew trick from me to you that you could put on your sleeve. The best items for it, obviously, that's going to be Eviolite and Life Orb. It's a sweeper, you know. Either it needs the tank to set up the Dragon Dance, or, you know, it needs the Life Orb to get the damage. Scarf for attacks is not bad on this thing whatsoever. I don't think Scarf alongside First Impression is any good because it's a first turn only, like Fake Out. But First Impression is definitely good on just like Eviolite for attacks or stuff like that. It might not be that good with Dragon Dance as well because you might want to have coverage that you can click several times. But it's definitely something you can do. You can do First Impression to attacks, Dragon Dance, for example. We're going to get to the sets in a little bit, but that's just some of the things that Axew can do. But the main thing in comparing it to Tyron is that, yes, Tyron does get Stab Rock Blast, which is a good multi-hit move. Yes, Strong Jaw, Elemental Jaws, Crunch, Psychic Fangs does give it amazing coverage. So in terms of if Axew's non-Terra, for example, I do think Tyrant has better coverage than Axew. Does it make it better in a lot of people's eyes? Yes. In my eyes personally, I think it's a discussion. I think it's arguable. I think the fact that Axew gets 16 speed is so huge for it. I don't think there's like a super power difference between them. But if Axew can go first and Mold Break, for example, if it's Tyrant versus Axew, Axew goes first and Mold Breaks the Sturdy, and then Dragon moves, and Tyrant got nothing on that, you know? So it's kind of a little bit, and if Tyrant is the best Dragon in LC and it can't battle Axew, that kind of says a little bit about how Tyrant runs, right? Tyrant is definitely not a bad mon by any stretch. We're going to be talking about Tyrant as well. It's a menace. It can definitely take over games, but Axew can too, and Axew is underrated, so that's why we're talking about Axew today. So let's go over to some sets that you can run on your Axew. Axew rarely gets drafted in LC. I haven't seen it draft in years, and I honestly don't know why. People just underestimate it, but it's often priced pretty fairly in terms of how strong it is. So obviously we're gonna reveal what kind of pricing is fair for it. You have to remember this show is opinion based. It is my opinion, but I like to think I got some credentials and look up. So the standard set for the Axew, that's going to be Eviolite Moldbreaker. You can run Terra-type Dragon, Terra-type Steel for resistances. You can also run Terra-type for coverage. You can run Firebug. I've just listed some recommendations here. If you run Life Orb, I would suggest not do the 68 HP. Just put 30 in defense and then run 0 IV, 0 HP EV. So you get 19 HP with Life Orb, so that you can only take 1 HP from using or as a Life Orb recoil instead. You can run Jolly. Jolly is what makes this thing 16, but you can also run it as a 15 speed dragon with Adamant, and then it gets a power boost, right? So you could definitely go for that. Dragon Dance, Iron Head, Dragon Claw, Superpower are for super common moves. You can obviously mix and match a little bit depending on what you want for your matchup specifically and what kind of coverage you need to break stuff, but here are some options for sure. You can also run Superpower Eject Pack, which is kind of funny. You could definitely do that, so you don't have to suffer the minus defense and minus attack afterwards, which is really nice. The other most common set you're going to see on Axew is going to be Choice Scarf. I've listed Moldbreaker as the only ability here, but obviously if you run Attract, run Rivalry. If there's a lot of set genders, you can run Rivalry over it. If there's a lot of good things for Moldbreaker, you obviously run Moldbreaker. If you expect a lot of resist berries or stuff like that, you could definitely run a Nerve. So I've listed only Moldbreaker because I think it's the most consistent out of the three, but you could definitely run the two other abilities as well. They're not useless, so just keep that in mind. But the second most is going to be a Choice Scarfer. Steel Terra Ironhead is going to get rid of the fairies and give you a lot of resistance pools because Steel is a really amazing typing. Obviously, if you run Scarf, I think you always run Jolly Nature because 16 speed is just so much better than 15 speed. You have to see the matchup, of course, if you what you need and stuff like that. But it's going to be very few scenarios where we run Adamant Scarf. But it could be a thing, but I think Jolly for the most part is what I'm going to be recommending. And if you're Scarfed, you might as well lock yourself in Outrage, or if not, you also can run Dragon Claw, and you can also, if it's Morlul, for example, you run Poison Jab over Ironhead and stuff like that, just like small details. If you are worried about getting burned, you run Facade as one of the moves, stuff like that. So that's just the standard recommendation. Onwards, on the bottom side of the screen here, I've listed some super saucy sets that you can run with your Axew, okay? So the first to the left is the Giga Destruction Dual Dance set. You can replace one of the dances for Substitute, just saying, but this thing blows out the water. Lumberry for predicting stuff to Will-O-Wisp or stuff like that. Eviolite is also super good with this. Of course, Eviolite is never bad. Little Cup, am I right? There's a ton of Terra types you can run on this. Obviously, Jolly or Adamant, depending on the nature, but this is the set that goes balls to the wall and you break everything in the game if it gets both the Sword Stance and the Dragon Dance up. If you give this thing 2 turns, the only thing that's going to beat this is priority. And if the priority isn't strong enough, Axew runs away with the game if you have the 2 correct coverage moves. Lumberry is also, if something doesn't have like a Will-O-Wisp or something like that, it's for Outrage Confusion. So you can Outrage 2 or 3 times, get confused, Lumberry fixes it, and then you can Outrage again. And if you have a Sword Stance and or Dragon Dance up, that's going to be super scary and hard to break. So obviously Stomping Tantrum for coverage, but you know, you fill in that with whatever coverage you feel like you need. It's just some suggestion there, but I feel like Outrage is just going to blow things out the water unless they have a fairy. Like even Steel on Resist is going to tank, like, it's going to Oko some of them, or some of the Steels, and it's going to 2 kill the Steels. So it's no switching whatsoever. And then at last you also have the Saucy Survive Swirlix / Focus Sash set with Endeavor Reversal. So you tank a hit and you can go for like an Endeavor. Only run Endure if you're running Berry, because Focus Sash kind of does that for you, and you can just run coverage. So even if something is hard to break for Axew, you can kind of use it as an Endeavor and go 1 for 1. Or you can kind of do Fighting Terror Reversal, you can lock yourself in Outrage and stuff like that. So it's kind of more a utility if you don't have an Eviolite left over, if you don't have a Scarf or stuff like that, and you don't want to go balls to the wall with a more supportive offensive Axew. You can definitely run a set like that. So the final rating for Axew in Little Cup National Dex Draft League, that's going to be A+, 12 out of 14 points. In my humble opinion, again, I think it's the best dragon in Little Cup just because it's the fastest dragon in Little Cup. But feel free to disagree with me and tell me why I'm wrong. Obviously, a lot of the Tyrant fan base is going to hop on me after this one, so you might not see another episode after this one. Just kidding. I just love making these episodes, man. So that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me who's next in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. This has been your boy Soulblaze, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.